Penguin Random House presents In the Name of God by Ravi Subramanian, read by Shahzad Bhiwandiwala. Author's note: the book refers to real places and real titles of people who operate in these places and in the government and law enforcement agencies. These have been used to lend an air of authenticity to the story, just as in a fictional story about the Pope or the Prime Minister of the nation or the President of the United States of America. The characters who occupy these positions in the book do not, and are not meant to, resemble the real-life incumbents in any manner. This story is entirely fictional and is not intended to be a depiction of the life of individuals who, in real life, occupy the exalted positions that their titles suggest. If, despite my best efforts, some similarities have crept in, I apologize. If you have this book in your hand, I recommend that you read it to enjoy what could be, rather than as a depiction of what is. Part 1, Chapter 1. Thiruvanathapuram. He didn't notice the body immediately, not even when he dipped the holy vessel into the Padmanabha Kulam, the divine pond, to fill it up for the Deva Prasnam. It was only as he was lifting the vessel, filled to the brim with water, that the right hand of the floating body scraped against it, and he saw it break through the surface of the weed-infested tank. His voice deserted him. He stood stupefied. The vessel dropped from his hand and sank to the bottom of the pond with a gurgling noise. Padmanabha, 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 he chanted loudly as he ran up the steps to the pond and sprinted towards the temple gates. Whether he was upset at having touched a dead body early in the morning, or it was the shock of having found said body floating in the temple pond, or both, was difficult to say. Chapter 2. Dubai. A few months ago, it was a deafening sound, the kind that is heard when metal crashes into glass, bringing the whole thing down. The ground shook. It almost felt like an earthquake. Visitors at the Wafi Mall, the largest and possibly most exquisitely designed luxury mall in the area, stood astounded. No one could fathom what was going on. Gate 1 of the mall was to the right of the central courtyard and a few minutes away from the main parking lot. The ground floor, accessible from Gate 1, was home to a variety of luxury gold and jewelry and accessory brands. Chopin, Cartier, Damas, Rolex, Omega, Breitling, and a few local biggies were within shouting distance from the gate. Moments later, another piece of glass came crashing down amid the perceptible sound of cars rumbling close by. At precisely 12:48 p.m., no one knew the significance of the time, if there was one, 2 Audi A6s, one black and one white, had driven up to Gate 1. It was not uncommon for cars to drive up to the mall entrance. It was some distance from the main parking, and the main clientele, the rich and famous of Dubai, were not used to walking with their shopping bags. Ordinarily, the cars stopped on the carriageway built for them, waited for a couple of minutes, picked up their masters, and drove out. But at 12:48 that day, the 2 Audis did not stop at the main gate. However, that was only half as strange as the manner in which they drove up to the gate. The black Audi was furiously approaching in reverse, followed closely by the white one, their bonnets almost kissing each other. By the time the lone security guard at the gate could react, the black Audi had already crashed through the glass and metal door with a deafening noise. It drove further into the mall, right up to the main lobby on the ground floor, and screeched to a halt, the white car following suit. It almost seemed as if the black Audi was the pilot car, clearing the way for the second car. But why was it being driven in reverse? No one knew. No one cared. All that anyone in the mall was worried about was saving his or her own life. What ensued was mass panic as scared shoppers started running helter-skelter. Amidst the confusion, 4 masked men, all dressed in black, got out of the cars, while the drivers stayed back, keeping the engines running. Armed with Kalashnikovs, they fired indiscriminately in the air, sending the already panic-stricken crowd into a state of hysteria. Everyone assumed it was a terrorist attack. At the time, that's what it seemed like. Nervously vigilant, the 4 men strode towards the aisle to the right of the entrance. It was narrow, short, and housed only 3 shops: Cartier, D. Damas, and Ajmal Jewelers. At any given point in time, the cumulative stock in all three stores put together was worth over $100 million. The leader of the group stopped in front of Ajmal Jewelers and gestured to the other three to take up their positions. It took just one bullet to neutralize the shop attendant who was furiously rolling down the safety grill. The men entered the store. Once they were in, they were cut off from the rest of the mall. All anyone could hear was the sound of shattering glass and indiscriminate gunfire. In 3 minutes, the men came out of the store and ran back to the two Audis. Each of them had a bag in one hand, clearly booty from Ajmal Jewelers. But, as they were rushing, the last of the four tripped and fell. The bag slipped out of his hands and rolled ahead. The contents of the bag, jewelry and gemstones, spilled out onto the marble floor. "Damn!" the leader swore. "Quick! 3 more minutes and the cops will be here. We need to go." The fall had delayed them by 45 seconds. They had to leave, else they would be sitting ducks for the Dubai police. He continued towards the Audi, even as his fallen team member recovered and tried to gather the loot on the floor and put it back into the bag. He quickly got into the second Audi, though he had not managed to collect everything that had fallen out of the bag. Immediately, the engines roared to life. The cars vroomed, and this time the white Audi reversed out of the shattered mall entrance, followed closely by the black one. In no time, they had disappeared from sight. The moment the cars left the mall, people rushed towards the jewelry showroom, a few stopping on the way to pick up the pieces of jewelry and curios that had fallen out of the robber's bag. Ajmal Jewelers was in shambles. Glass from broken windows and display units was strewn all over. There was blood everywhere. 7 people had been shot, 6 store staff and a sole shopper. All of them were dead. Chapter 3. Thiruvanathapuram, 1900 onwards. There is a history to why Kerala is called God's own country. In the 1750s, Travancore was ruled by Maharaja Aniram Tirunal Martanda Varma, a pious and God-fearing king. Aniram gave up his entire kingdom to Lord Ananta Padmanabha in a ceremony called Tripadi Danam, thereby making God the owner of the kingdom of Travancore. Thus, Travancore came to be known as God's own country, a legacy that Kerala has inherited. After the Tripadi Danam ceremony, the prefix Padmanabha Dasa, or slave of Lord Padmanabha, was added to the king's name. Whenever a male child was born into the royal family of Travancore, he was laid on the Ottakal Mandapam, the single granite stone slab abutting the Sanctum Sanctorum, in front of Lord Ananta Padmanabha in the Ananta Padmanabha Swamy Temple in Thiruvanathapuram, and holy water from the Padmatirtha Kulam, the temple pond, was sprinkled on him. Thereafter the child, possibly the future king, would be proclaimed as Sri Padmanabha Dasa. Every king ruled Travancore and cared for its people and property on behalf of Lord Padmanabha. Things changed around the time India attained independence in 1947. At that time, nearly a third of the subcontinent comprised princely states. Prior to independence, the states were given an option to either accede to India or Pakistan, or even stay independent. Since most of them were dependent on the government, they chose to accede to India. By 1949, all these kingdoms had merged with the nation and new states were created, as a result of which the kings lost all ruling rights. In return, the government announced a privy purse, an assured sum of money to be paid annually to the erstwhile king. The amount was determined by the economic importance of the state, the stature of the ruler, the relationship he enjoyed with the government, and the longevity of the kingdom. The privy purse was abolished by the Indira Gandhi-led Congress government in 1971 in what came to be known as the 26th Amendment to the Constitution of India. Though the move was severely contested by the rulers, they couldn't do much once the amendment was passed by both the houses of parliament. The South Indian kingdoms of Travancore and Cochin merged to become the new state of Tirukochi. Chitra Tirunal Balarama Varma was the last ruling king of Travancore, who signed the Instruments of Ascension to India, died in 1991. It was after his death that his younger brother, Aswati Tirunal Dharmaraja Varma, took over as the titular king of Travancore, and by virtue of that, he became the trustee managing the affairs of the Lord Ananta Padmanabha Swamy Temple. He was referred to as Padmanabha Dasa and at times even as Tampuran, the Lord, or Tirumanasu, a Malayalam word for...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?